I'm Jim Check. You're watching Now Media. I'm with me, Ian Burns. We got a really big show today, as usual. We do news differently. We offer our opinion. We're actually, you know what? You're going to find where we kind of make news make sense. And beautiful blue sky here in the Okanagan with just a smattering of smoke. And lots to get into. Lots to get into as Parliament looks to head back, but the Liberals are in Edmonton right now, and the big news breaking from Radio Canada, amazing how they get it, hey? Radio Canada has the news that no pipeline in the major projects list. Also, Canada sliding into recession. Well, you don't have to tell that to most people. The temporary foreign workers program, more important than employing our youth. EVs, not that important in saving the world. Liberals need their own DOGE department. Crime becoming a national story of consequence. And Turdeau looking for the podium and some easy cash. Imagine that. If you got some cash, Trudeau is willing to speak to you. All that and a lot more on the really big show. Again, we do news a little bit different here, so we thank you if you're watching. We ask that you share, comment, like, and if you're commenting and sharing while you're in there watching, that is much appreciated, because this is not CBC funded news. How's that? Or Liberal government funded news. But let's kick it off right away. Mark Carney, the Prime Minister, he's in Edmonton, talking about hockey and all that kind of stuff. But we'll kick it off first with the budget, because the Bloc Québécois, Yves Blanchette, had to say that he thinks that there is going to be about an $80 billion deficit. And the Canadian economy overall is leading the government to a huge deficit, said the Bloc leader. People are talking about a deficit of some $80 billion. This is a historic amount. And Cabinet has yet to fix a date for tabling its 2025 budget with deficit figures. The budget year started in April 1, and he said he didn't want to comment on the budget. We don't know anything about it. I think he related him to Harry Potter as well in his little speech there. Blanchette said he, based on his current $80 billion deficits on Liberal promises of increased military spending, the removal of $30 billion in counter-terrorist and election promise, which will cost billions. Opposition leader Pierre Poilievre on September 4th predicted a budget deficit of $84 billion. Makes Trudeau look like he was a spendthrift, right? Like doubles what Trudeau was doing. Notice that they got some polls out there supporting these budgets, saying 53% of Canadians now support a larger deficit. 43% of Canadians still have their operating brain. How's that, if you want to look at it that way? It looks like Mark Carney's deficit will be bigger than what Trudeau left, obviously. And then Parliament has not balanced the budget in 18 years. Wow.
I mean, there have been surpluses, though. Yeah, quite a few surpluses in that time. Yeah, it'll be economic gobbledygook, that, won't it? It's quite misleading, I think, that statement.
But the really big news, and in the really big news, this is what everybody's been waiting for. This is where the rubber meets the road, and this is where Danielle Smith gets to find out what's going on. And they're in Edmonton, and they're going to meet as well. And but Pierre Poilievre put this out. Elbows down, Radio Canada confirms that Carney will not allow an oil pipeline to be built and will continue selling our oil at a massive discount to the U.S. And we know that. Western Canadian Select, you can pull it up anytime, sells at a massive discount to West Texas Intermediate and many other oils in the world. He'll keep the Trudeau shipping ban, production cap, industrial carbon tax. Yeah, and then that LNG that gets sent south gets marked up and then sold to the Europeans that had the Polish ambassador laughing about. It's almost like comedy if it wasn't so painful. And then this is from Norman Spector there. No oil pipeline on the list of national. It seems like everybody got this news, or Radio Canada got it, and before they actually get to do it. I think they usually do this just to feel out the public, right? To see, they kind of soft blow it out there, right? So there's not this big blowback. So they kind of push it out there, and so they can deny a little bit of deniable plausibility, but then they just kind of slide it in there.
They can massage the narrative. They can massage the media. And if you ask yourself, what's been going on in the last couple of weeks, there's been this increasing disquiet among extremists on the climate extremists within the Liberal Party, but also MPs within the caucus. There's been uncertainty and concern, let's say, among those people about Mark Carney, and they're not so sure that he's their guy after all. But this comes out in the news. You leak something to some very reliable people like CBC, just an extension of the Liberal Party's PR department. They go out and they do this, and then all of a sudden, today's news is about how Carney is actually he is committed to the environment after all somehow, because he doesn't like pipelines, and that kind of, we have to think about the way that news is processed by the average person. They might see that and go, oh yeah, great, like he is our guy, and then next week maybe, or tomorrow for all we know, he'll give a different signal, and then it's just this way of kind of controlling people really, or society, and it's exceedingly manipulative. But I do think that this has all the hallmarks. We can't know, obviously, because we're not privy to this kind of secret, backdoor, shadowy business that goes on, but it does have the hallmarks of that kind of thing, like just putting it out there to appease a certain minority within his own party.
Yeah, and also the poll that comes out that says 53% of Canadians support a deficit at this time. Imagine that, as they're about to table a budget that is of record proportions, even double Trudeau's deficit. And all of a sudden, no Canadians want this. Like Francois Philippe Champagne.
The better question to ask is, before you go out and you do this survey, does the average Canadian know what a deficit is? My opinion, and I have a very high opinion of the average Canadian. I think they're a lot better qualified, more intelligent than the average politician or journalist for that matter, but I'm not convinced that they do know really what a deficit is. Lots of very educated people have no idea what a deficit is, not really. A better question to ask them would be, how do you feel about in 5 or 10 years money being subtracted from health spending so that we can give it to people who've bought Canadian bonds, so that we can use it to pay off interest on debt? What do you think about that, shifting part of the budget from health to loans to pay off interest? Do you think that's a good idea? The vast majority of people say, no, that's stupid. So in that context, look at it like that. I would say people actually are probably quite hostile to a deficit if they knew what it meant down the line.
I'll add one more for you. Do you support higher inflation going forward? Because that's what government spending does, is inflation. It's a tax. It's a tax on your income. Let's listen to the CBC here talking about how they got the news first and explaining it to us.
Rafi, let me ask you about what we're hearing from our colleagues at Radio-Canada. The government is preparing to announce its first national interest projects. Our colleagues at Radio-Canada have learned that there are no oil pipelines included on that list for now. It didn't make the short list. Can you explain the thinking behind that?
Yeah, interesting timing as they gather here in Alberta, right? But evidently there is no proponent for the project. So Liberal sources told Radio-Canada, well, if nobody's sticking their hand up to build the thing, we can't approve it right now. They're insisting, though, that this is temporary. An oil pipeline could make its way onto the list in the future. So could a gas pipeline, for instance. And no doubt Carney will be having words with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith about this decision. They're set to meet later this evening. Smith, of course, is a huge proponent of pipelines. She's been asking the Liberals to get rid of Bill C-69, which is their environmental impact assessment legislation, which she says nixes the chances of any pipeline ever being built. The two leaders will meet at 5:30 Mountain Time this evening. They don't have any public availability scheduled after that meeting, so it will be at least one sleep until we hear from how that meeting went down and what they spoke about.
I guess that's going to be him trying to ameliorate Smith.
Yeah, so if they think they're going to appease Danielle Smith with saying, oh, yeah, we'll put one on the list as soon as, somebody's willing to pay for it. With all this legislation in the way of any company, committing billions and billions of dollars, say you commit all these billions of dollars to this project, well knowing that there's all this legislation in the way. Who's going to do it? It's like catch-22.
And This has been talked about for years. It's not like this is a surprise to anybody. We all know this anyway.
Like,
this goes back to the date that this legislation was put in place in the first place. It goes back a long time. People said, "Oh, okay, that's the end of pipelines then." I mean,
so
or new
I guess
pipelines.
the real question is Danielle Smith dumb enough to be gaslit with this? I guess that's the question. So,
well, she
Tim
hasn't
Hodgson,
shown any signals whatsoever that she's gonna buy this kind of thing. She's been insistent and very clear on this. So yeah.
Tim Hodgson out there with an announcement. You know, I don't have the clip for you, but this is the announcement that he made, though, and basically it's in the text there. The oil and gas pipeline is billions and billions of dollars, but here's the announcement he makes on the eve of saying there's no oil pipeline. They announced a $5.8 million to support homegrown carbon management technologies companies in BC. Again, helping some friends get a carbon capture company going. By investing now, we can de-risk these technologies as they scale, giving Canadian firms a stronger footing to secure contracts with carbon-intensive industries in Canada and abroad. Wow, hey, that should prop up the Canadian economy, no problem. $5.8 million. I think that's...
Yeah, it's not for any... It doesn't look like it's for anything actually material. It's like a classic, just money for nothing kind of thing, isn't it? I mean, literally nothing in this case. For studying how to dig a hole and pump CO2 into it in an effort to save the world.
I've got several carbon capture projects on my property. Probably have 30, 40 trees. I'm going to have to send a bill to the Liberals for all the carbon capture that I'm doing on my property. Dan Elvis, our local MP, says the entire point of Liberals Bill 69, C69, no new pipelines on C48, was entirely to ensure that private companies would not raise a finger to develop a project. I mean, it's just comedy. It's the same as Bill C18, sorry, for free and independent media. Oh, we support free independent media and local journalism. At the same time, they have the knee on the throat of independent and local outlets. But hey, the support's there.
But I mean, the thing is, how much longer can they play the fool and pretend like everything's a-okay and that there is no bidder came? It's a bit like the BC Ferries thing, isn't it? It's like, well, no Canadian company bid. It's just absent context. It's just a ridiculous thing to say, isn't it, frankly?
So I guess if you're watching CBC and CTV all the time, you're going to buy everything they're selling, because if you're still watching that and believe they're telling you the truth, you will buy anything. We got a little clip here from our Prime Minister there. It's just showing you how serious he is right there. We're going to play a little clip from the meeting in Edmonton there.
But I'm going to get right down to business. I know this room didn't take the summer off, so it's not really back to school, but September always has that feel. And let's face it, we are in a crisis. We are in a crisis. The global trading system has been upended. Supply chains have been destroyed. McDavid is unsigned. This is not a transition. This is a rupture. As in times like these, you have to draw back in. Remember what you have. Draisaitl, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins. We got to draw on those strengths. We got to draw on those values. And Connor, if there's anything that we can do in the upcoming budget, we're spending less, we're going to invest more, so we can bring that cup back to Canada.
Is that populism, or what is that? Like the worst crisis of our time? Maybe explain that to the people who are losing their jobs. Maybe just tell them that they can eat those jokes. You know, I give it to him that he's actually delivered some jokes to his audience that loves him. But I mean, for people that are looking for serious answers in the worst crisis of our time, that's his response. That's the message as they head back to Parliament.
It's not the right time to do that. I mean, the next thing that we're going to talk about here is the former Bank of Canada saying the economy is doomed. We're on the verge of recession. And then we're going to talk about temporary foreign worker program. All these like crises that are going on. It's not the time to do it, really. But I mean, I don't think you should go around all the time in mourning and sort of mumbling something in a sort of sad voice. That's not necessarily the way to live your life and do things, is it? It's counterproductive, if anything, to behave like that. But what I would say is it stings particularly because he told us, and he won the election based on telling us, the Canadian electorate, that we were in a crisis sort of that could only be compared to the Second World War. That was the only analogy that he could think of. And then proceeded to have the summer off. Now he's telling us that apparently they worked during the summer. I haven't seen any evidence that they worked, but apparently it was hard graft. But they proceeded to be off on the summer and then stop talking about Trump being this existential threat. Suddenly that's not what he is. Then they took counter tariffs off US products, and now it's now he's laughing about it, and he's talking about like putting hockey players' wages into the budget and things. It's just you can't really do that. You can't win an election based fundamentally on fear, and then a few months later just giggle about it and pretend everything's okay. It's that's what's going to hurt. I think his standing among anybody that's paying attention.
There's the answer right there. The logo right in the middle of the screen. He knows that the media outlets, the national media in Canada, is super friendly to him, and they will look at that as just like, oh, how he's such a great communicator. If this was in the United States, he would get ripped to shreds by the media for taking it this lightly. Again, if you stood up in the greatest crisis of our time since the Second World War, would you stand up there in the Second World War and say, hey, we lost a bunch of troops today, but hey, on the other side of that, I had a great game in backgammon and it's, whatever it is, and just downplay everything, like the people that are losing their jobs or have lost their jobs, the people that are losing their businesses, and even us are being crushed by Bill C-18. Well, this logo in the middle of the screen there rakes it in, digs into the trough, and now is at $1.55 billion. And the first thing they did when they got that big raise from Mark Carney was give the executive a raise. It's actually atrocious. And then this continues, but they know that logo and CTV will be on their side. They know that for a fact. Go watch the news. I guarantee you, in the next couple of days, they're going to play it how Mark Carney is the man of the people. Look into his jokes there. He's just they're not going to say, oh my God, he's not taken seriously. Sure, there's going to be some independent media like ourselves that are going to call him out on it, but we don't have a national voice unless you give it to us and if you share this and get this out there more.
I would say you're actually being a little bit you're being a little bit kind and generous to our friends in the establishment media, because I don't think that they'll cover it at all. That's my feeling. They'll do what we've got a similar thing going on in America, as usual with America, much more dramatic, where that woman was killed in Charlotte, and the New York Times didn't write an article until they could frame it in a way that they liked. So they waited a very long time in news terms, but they tried to just omit, which is the instinct, and that is what they're going to do. I mean, I'm theorizing here. Mark Carney's just said this. This has just happened, but they'll just omit. They just won't include that part. It's like it's a 25-minute or something video or appearance. They'll just include a bit where he's stern or something, where he says like, "We got to get this economy going." Like they'll just include that bit. They won't include the bit where he laughs, and it'll just be on X, and that's kind of where it'll linger. It'll just linger on social media.
It's disingenuous at best, but it doesn't really speak to where we're at for crime, where we're at for housing crisis, where we're at for a recession, where we're at for trade, where we're at for... Again, we've said it a million times, you have too, is watch the actions, not the talk. Watch the actions. And the actions say they're not serious.
And look at the context as well. Who is he speaking to? Just in case anybody doesn't know, he's speaking to Liberal MPs, speaking to the caucus. That's important. He's not speaking to the plebs. He's not speaking to the masses. He's not trying to win favors from the masses. He's talking to his boys. He's talking to his team, and that's quite an important fact to remember, because I almost feel like he doesn't quite realize that this is televised. Because you're talking about back in the day, like during the war, or something. They probably would have had a laugh behind closed doors now and then. Everybody does. It's fine. But I think the difference is, Winston Churchill, FDR, somebody like that, they wouldn't do a radio broadcast or something where they giggled and had a laugh, would they, during a serious moment in history? And that, I think, is That's the biggest mistake. I think it's like, know your audience. But also for us cynics out here, us peasants looking in at the nobles, I think it's important to remember that this is basically a party for the ruling class, isn't it? These are the rulers. This is like a little peek
It's
through the
absolutely
curtain
elitism.
at
Yeah.
the king's table as he entertains his dukes and earls and knights and all the rest of it. And that's his, that's the tone that he adopts. Just laughing.
If the Liberal Party wants a marketing slogan, it should be for the benefit of the few at the expense of the many. And that's basically their policies throughout. For the benefit of the few and the expense of the many. And I'll bring it up and I'll show you some of it as we move along here. Again, this is the former Bank of Canada governor saying Canada and the U.S. sliding towards recession. I don't believe him on the United States. Their GDP numbers look pretty solid. The price of energy is at 2020 lows. Everything is going the right way for America, including investment. And in Canada, definitely, this is him soft selling Canada's recession, saying, oh, look, we're tied to each other. The numbers don't support a recession for the United States, but they sure do support a recession here in Canada.
They just had a really dire jobs revision, didn't they, in the US? Nearly 1 million lost, I think it was. So there are some indicators that it looks rough in America, there is talk but that was not quite the same as here.
Yeah. There was talk that was a politically motivated, and that's where that firing came from. But I'm just saying, look at the rest of the numbers, the GDP numbers. Look at the investment that's flowing in there. Listen to the announcements. Listen to the announcements of all the big tech companies investing billions and billions and trillions of dollars in the United States. We don't have those announcements. Tim Hodgson stood up there and he announced $5.6 million. They announced trillions of dollars.
It's also the case that they tend to intervene quite a lot less. It's a much more open economy, the American economy. It's much more open to creative destruction.
Here's some common sense for you.
Which can make it look like a recession is happening, but really it's a transformation. Whereas the Canadian economy is much more closed off and much more hostile to the concept of creative destruction.
Here's some common sense for you, just to apply this, Mr. Former Bank of Canada Governor. Where has capital been fleeing and where has it been going? Canadian capital, where's it going? To the United States of America. Where's Mark Carney's fortunes? United States of America. Where'd Brookfield go? United States of America. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then again, the benefit of the few, the expense of the many, the temporary foreign workers program getting a lot of attention here. Even EB said something. But the labor minister, Patty Hadjou, was asked a question. Listen to her response on youth unemployment. Let's have a listen.
Youth unemployment numbers. I'm just curious why you think they're so high right now.
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, many economists say that youth are the canary in the coal mine. And as we see sectors threatened, as we see employers tighten up on hiring, often it is youth, and those that are the newest and entering their career that are facing the hardest time to find that employment. And it's why today's announcement is so important, in fact, because making sure that youth have current skills, have relevant work experience. I think a lot of the work that the federal government funds and provinces and territories on work-integrated learning is a very important investment that has to continue. Young people need on-the-job experiences. They need to gain, as many employers say, soft skills as well as the credentials that they carry after their post-secondary education. So this is something that we have to stay focused on with provincial partners, with sectors like and organizations like Amy.
Youth unemployment.
Yeah. So our youth is just basically unemployable because they have awful skills. They can't even get jobs in fast food restaurants. I mean, that's how bad our youth has been denigrated to, according to Patty Hadjou, and we're going to see Doug Ford later say that. Again, the theme, for the benefit of the few at the expense of the many. We have like 20% and higher in some areas of Canada for youth unemployment. David Eby, speaking out though, he has doubled down on his critique of Ottawa's temporary foreign worker program, calling out Starbucks, Boston Pizza outlets for using the system to recruit staff. He said we need an immigration system that ensures that predatory employers are not able to use temporary foreign worker programs to depress wages and deny opportunities to our workers. Restaurants Canada, of course, speaks out and says that Eby is missing the reality of the food service industry. There are skilled workers that require specific training. We don't have a domestic. I worked in the restaurant industry for a long time. My mom and dad worked in the restaurant industry. And I know many people personally that start in McDonald's at 14, 15 and become franchise owners. So don't give me this that the restaurant industry has skilled. Like This is absolutely ridiculous. And it's just, again, the expense of the many for the benefit of the few. It's basically corporate greed that's driving this, right? It's just cheap, exploiting cheap labor. You can't tell me, you can't defend the restaurant industry. It's just, we're going to reach out to the Restaurants Canada and ask them, what are these jobs that are so hard to fill in Canada that a young man can't, or a young woman can't fill these jobs? Tim Hortons, for that matter.
Look, the truth is, it's not just about cheapness, is it? It's also about how pliant they are. And when you have somebody that's stuck to you and their sort of presence in the country is dependent on you, that's a very unequal relationship, isn't it? And I think that added that sort of dynamic to the relationship, sorry to say, is something that employers seem to like. But this idea, I think the most damning comment here is, we don't have the domestic labor supply. What were we just talking about? 20% unemployment among kids in some places. Like, come on. But they even mention, this is the CEO of Restaurants Canada. She says, oh, you know, some places are really hard to staff, like 24-hour, you know, I can't remember what she, like convenience stores or something, or whatever it is, but places that are open 24 hours. And I kind of just think, maybe we have to have a conversation then as a sort of, as a society, and have a really big conversation and say, do we need 24-hour fast food restaurants or whatever it is that much that we're willing to kind of do damage to our society through this mass immigration? Like, is it worth it? But you know, that's another question. I mean, this idea that you can't get people to work in places like Starbucks. I mean, I think David Eby is probably speaking for the majority in BC when he says, like, he literally said in that little speech, he just said, I'm not buying that. I don't believe that.
So David Eby, like, kudos to him for actually speaking out for workers, because that's what the NDP used to represent, was the people. And, you know, like that BC Ferries thing was definitely not the people that was being represented. But here he is actually speaking out for the people and adding his voice to Pierre Poilievre's voice. And this little threat here by the BC food service industry, listen to this threat here. BC food service industry, and generates more than $20 billion in economic activity, representing 5% of the province GDP. You know, that little threat there actually is damning for the British Columbia province, because like we should be generating so much more in our resource sector. But that threat, there's no way that if we should have 20% unemployment here for our youth in some areas of Canada and be hiring temporary foreign workers for these jobs that they say are, you know, like our youth. You're saying to people that our youth are that stupid, they can't work in the restaurant industry. That is absolutely ludicrous, and these people should be held to account. We're going to reach out to Restaurants Canada. I can guarantee they probably won't want to speak to us, but we'll have a chat with Kelly there to explain why our youth are too stupid to work in the restaurant industry.
Or why they won't train them. Like, yeah, are they so stupid you can't train them? They're untrainable?
But somebody that
there's
can't
so many
speak,
questions.
Somebody that can't speak the languages obviously has a better IQ and a better ability to be trained, obviously.
Well, anybody that's gone through the drive-through in recent years knows that they're much better at communication, aren't they? They're much better at understanding you when you ask for things.
Here's Doug Ford. Again, the expense of the many at the benefit of the few. Doug Ford says, look harder. Doug Ford tells unemployed young people seeking work. So there you go. Doug says it's their fault.
He comes out with some codswallop, doesn't he, old Douglas?
And then here's another one, the government of Ontario, Metrolinx. They've got a job posting. Nobody in Canada can actually fill this job, apparently. $155,000, $220,000.
What? That's fun. Good fun.
Apparently, we're all too stupid. And then here it is, and they got the same thing going on. Again, it's the Liberals and the Democrats that really love this open borders and temporary foreign workers, all this kind of stuff, because it's basically the UN, is not the UN, but a world organization is called Canada's immigration policy, basically modern day slavery. But here, listen to Karen Bass explain it to you, what she needs from the foreign workers and the illegal immigrants in the United States.
It really amounts to hunting people that look like they're Latino. It's hard to get your car washed in LA now. Why? Because they prey on car washes.
Who's going to wash your car? Hey?
It's not like we invented the technology to do that 50 years ago or something. Come on.
Hey, who's going to wash your car? We need these people in here. We need illegal immigrants. We need to suppress wages because we need somebody to wash our cars, cut our grass. Like you're basically saying you need slaves. You need slaves.
But
right?
it's also, and it's also saying, making a racial element, where it's like Latinos. Yeah. And then, so is that what they are to you? Is that what people from Latin America, is that what they represent to you? Yeah. People to wash your car? I mean, it's just, how many times have we seen examples of this?
You know what?
Contemptuous behavior.
Karen Bass, maybe you should give Marco Rubio a call and say, hey, they're having a tough time filling the car washes. Perhaps Marco Rubio should go there and wash some cars because he's working way above his pay grade right now.
According to her, according to the racial hierarchy of the United States that she believes exists.
She's we do our regular show once a week. I had Renee Merrifield, former MLA, be on the ballot. Good show to go watch. We talked about lots of stuff in there. Housing, the housing plan. We compared Poilievre's plan with Carney's plan. The rising crime in Canada. And obviously, climate change. We talked about the EV mandate. And obviously now EVs. According to CBC, pausing the EV sales mandate might not be that bad for the climate after all. Imagine that. So here comes again, look at the logo. Check the logo out. What's the logo there? What's the logo? What's the logo? All of a sudden, you know, like for years, they've been telling us that the world was actually burning up and that we had to stop holidays. We had to stop everything, basically, right? Basically, you know, eating beef was bad. I don't even know. Like yesterday, you shouldn't even eat ice cream. Well, you shouldn't eat ice cream for health reasons, but not good. And now all of a sudden, Mark Carney pauses the EV mandate, and who comes to the rescue and says, well, hold on, it's not that bad. It's fine. Calm down. The climate, religion people that are starting to lose their minds of what's going on. But here's Doug Ford, the ever so populist guy.
Mandate. We have to make sure it's permanent. And I appreciate him listening to me, but he's listening to the sector as well. When you have all the large auto manufacturers saying we aren't going to hit that mandate, that's their goal, obviously, but if you can't hit it, you can't hit it. So we have to make sure that we continue to invest, and I'm glad to see Volkswagen, they're building their 16 million square foot facility. They're moving forward. But government can't dictate. The market dictates. The people dictate, not the government.
Well, he seems to believe in subsidizing certain companies within the market, so he's not that much of a sort of market purist, is he?
And here's the reality of the situation. Here's an Abbotsford gasoline, $1.81 a liter. Oh, $1.82.
Back to the bad old days.
Yeah, so that didn't last long, that carbon tax removal. I mean, they get so much money off taxing gas. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, if you were a cynic, you would say the whole carbon tax scheme was just a taxation scheme. No different than the marijuana thing was a way to tax marijuana. And then the climate thing was just, so they generated billions and billions of dollars of new taxation. And what did they do with it? What did we show yesterday? They sent $500 million to South America. And how many billions have we sent to Ukraine? Billions and billions of dollars buying favor throughout the world for the Liberal Party.
Well, also, yeah, not just throughout the world, but particularly in the saintly, hallowed province of Quebec, where so much Canadian taxpayers' money seems to just be transported by dump truck. A sort of regular stream of cash delivered to that province, but also, and often in Quebec, to the likes of Honda, that impecunious, small, plucky little company there that needed billions of dollars in subsidy just to, you know, get off their behind and do something, which they, in the event, haven't even done. But yeah, you look at how this money is spent. It's hard, isn't it? It's very difficult to swallow when you see taxes go up and you see where it's spent. It's increasingly doesn't seem like much of a bargain, does it?
Yeah, again, at the expense of the many, at the benefit of the few. Here we go again, and this is the story that Hollydome Blacklocks. The Department of Public Works in 2024 approved the sale of these 19,000 costly new ventilators as scrap metal without even bothering to remove them from their original shipping crates. And that's what she got from access to information records. And the manager there said, like this is going to make us look bad. One manager warned of high reputational risk if the taxpayers found out. You know, the CBC and CTV do lots of cover for you, so like most people will never find out, right? The main point of this needs to be captured in the National Emergency Strategic Stockpile. It doesn't even have the resources to dismantle the ventilators into individual components, said one manager. Even the proceeds for the sale were enticing. We still wouldn't want to waste time disassembling the units. No, why waste time, right? Got all that Netflix to watch. And then there's a picture of these ventilators here. We got an image of the ventilator here for you. There you go. Scrap.
That was like, you have to cast your mind back 5 years. That was gold, wasn't it? That was gold dust. That was in such high demand. And to see that it was yet another misjudgment is sickening, really, isn't it?
The average proceeds from sale were 14 cents a pound. I know I could probably get more money for the metal. And then there's a paramedic that was out there buying them. It was Luke Halstead there. He said he was the first to publicly document the sale of medical devices as scrap metal for as little as $6 each. I bought so many, I had to take multiple trips with a livestock trailer, he said in a 2024 interview. The bidding started at $5, which is not unusual for scrap metal or wooden pallets. So you get in on that little scrap metal thing, and I'm sure you can resell that. He said 50 of the 50 complete and partial ventilators he bought at auction, almost half of them were in their original shipping crates.
I mean, and a very interesting question is, anybody been punished? Any punishment whatsoever for this failure? And the answer is no, isn't it? We already know the answer.
And what is the general perception of the Afghanistan withdrawal out there?
Great success, surely?
Well, I mean, people hanging off airplanes, it didn't seem like, but Joe Lee okayed an Afghan hero party. So here's another one where Holly Dones makes them look bad. This is, again, we don't get the information for a couple of years. So and then they say, oh, we've got to look forward. That's what they'll tell you right away. Like, we need to look forward. Stop looking back. So they had a party there. And that's from a confidential Department of Foreign Affairs party to self-congratulate employees for their bravery in the 2021 flight from Kabul that was improved by Jolie. And so they had this ceremony. It was only a government-organized event to recognize remarkable efforts deployed by the Government of Canada employees during the August 2021 Afghanistan evacuation. There you go.
Good news story. Wow. Good news stories about our recent efforts related to Afghanistan are rare. What a disaster.
But hey, let's party on the taxpayer dollar.
I mean, obviously it was quite, this doesn't detract from the fact that it was quite brave, and, you know, I'm sure these soldiers did, like, generally in what they were doing, they must have done a pretty good job though, under American leadership as well. And there's a lot, it's complicated, but it's obviously very stupid, isn't it, to refer to that as good news.
Here's another one. The Federal Labor Board has faulted the Department of National Defense for denying a religious exemption from its vaccine mandate. So finally, we get something here that's similar to the United States. Sincere religious beliefs were sufficient to decline a COVID shot, the adjudicator ruled. And he said that he was entitled to an exemption because he had sincere religious beliefs and that he should not receive the vaccine.
That's quite a big one, isn't it?
It is. And there's a piece in here that I want to find here.
Because that was definitely not, I mean, so many people tried that religious exemption and it was not granted, was it? Barely anybody succeeded in that.
Listen to this. This is the key point in here, this decision. The Employment Board, in all cases, cited a landmark 2004 Supreme Court ruling, Northcrest versus Amundsen, that the state is in no position to be, nor should it become, the arbiter of religious dogma. But hey, during Trudeau, I mean, the state knew everything. Did we just lose something? Are we there?
Yeah, well, we lost our liberty, didn't we? In 2020.
lost the feed here. I can't see. Oh, there it's back. I don't know what happened, but
You're talking about something that you shouldn't be talking about, aren't you?
yeah, I
Move
think
on.
the CBC cut our feed there. It was electrical. I don't know. Who knows what it was? OpenAI set to argue in Ontario court that copyright lawsuit followed by the Canadian news publishers involving a ChatGPT AI should be heard in a U.S. courtroom. We're losing it again, or what's going on? It's off again. OpenAI expected to say it does no business in Canada, shouldn't be sued by Ontario news outlets. I lost the screens there.
You're still here, Jim.
Yeah. What's going on with the screens? They keep flickering. Is something loose there?
I can still see it on mine, so I think it's just you.
Okay. We did this story here. Despite the so-called American boycott, most Canadians still traveling to the U.S. So that number is almost 75% of Canadians still going. 26% of the people that watch CBC obviously not going. The big story, though, the absolute big story that's happening all over Canada and the United States is crime, absolute crime. And here's the mayor of Barrie has declared a state of emergency due to crime, lawlessness, and out of control, homeless encampments, and he blames the judges and the rest of the judicial system for not doing their job. And that was after Justice Minister, what was his name again? Sean Fraser, the former immigration minister, the former housing minister who left a wake behind him there and it said this is not the Wild Wild West. Well, let's listen in on what the mayor of Barrie says about the Wild Wild West here in Canada.
Judges are superseding everyday bylaws. The cities have enacted to create and maintain order. The Barrie Police Department operates as an arm's-length police service overseeing law enforcement, or the lack thereof, being told by the justice system that it's a waste of time to enforce drug possession or drug use laws. This because often those same judges just mentioned throw the cases out and warn the prosecutors to steer away from such charges. While I support the county's plan to deliver new space and the Heart Hub, we have all simply run out of time. The City of Barrie does not have control over this emergency until now. Today I'm announcing that I've declared a state of emergency in the City of Barrie, as I requested the former administration to do. While we wait for the county's long-term plan to be implemented, the City of Barrie is immediately instituting the state of emergency to reclaim our streets, our boulevards, our parks, our squares, our feeling of safety, and our order. While this order will not appoint federal judges that protect the rights of citizenry to live in a free and lawful society, it will address the problem from the ground up. Barrie City Council has already done so much. In 2023, we provide an additional $1.65 million, increasing our funding to local social service agencies. Also in 2023, we ended the prisoner drop-off program in downtown Barrie that left individuals in our downtown from around the province of Ontario when they left incarceration at Penetang. In 2025, with the help of our police resources, and I see our Deputy Chief here today.
In Kelowna, there's an offender has 222 active files, including 32 failures to appear. How many failures to appear does a person need to have before they stop letting him out on bail? How many? Is it 35, 37, 40,
more than 32,
50,
that's for sure.
100, 150? How many is it? How many? And here we go again, and this is a brewery that burnt down here, and this is the story on Kelowna Now as well. Repeat offender arrest after BC brewery fire sparks call for more bail reform. How much? This is in Prince George, and this is Richard Tixner there, 57, charged with arson causing damage to the property, has been held in custody as he waits his court appearance at 1:30 today. What's the chances of him getting out? BC court documents show that Richard there, prior to Friday's fire at Crossroads, had made at least 18 court appearances over the past 5 years. He was also convicted of assault, obstruction of justice, and 2 counts of breach of probation in 2010. What are the odds that he gets
got
up
to a point where...
What are the odds he's released at 1:30 today?
But I don't think even the most extreme radicals going back decades, you know, even during the 60s and times like that where there's an explosion in idealism and naivety, I don't think even they would have thought it would ever get this bad, you know? It's just so far beyond what anybody could have
Here.
ever wondered or predicted, I think.
Here's some more, and if you're not getting mad yet, this should help. Here you go. $50 million cocaine. Let's listen to the Peel police there. Let's listen in.
Of the 9 people arrested, 3 are still awaiting bail hearings, and 6 have had their bail hearings and have been released with conditions.
There you go. Stop right there. That's good enough. That's all you need to know. $50 million worth of cocaine, 6 released, and 3 just waiting to get released. That's what they should have said. 3 waiting to get released.
I mean, some of the things that I've seen, some of the crimes that people have committed and then been granted bail. It's almost impossible to understand. It's impossible to fathom. And I don't know. I mean, the data. Everybody loves a bit of data, don't we? That seems to show that it's really a very small minority of people that commit the majority of crime, because they just do it again and again and again and again and again, and it's like they become like habitual, prolific criminals. So it really is the case that this is optional. The crime that we experience now in places like Canada or anywhere else, it's optional. It's a choice, because in most cases, we know who the criminals are anyway, because they've done it so many times. And the answer is just don't let them out. Who'd have thought, eh? Who'd have thought it would be so complicated?
I did the interview with the NDP Minister of Community Safety, and he's a former police officer. I mean, they all seem to say the same thing, but this is the Liberal policy and the Democratic policy for that matter. We're going to skip the next 2 stories that we were going to do. One was just on Doug Ford's speed cameras. He's just being populist there again. And then there's a bus in Montreal, that electric bus that was on fire. It's just But in the bigger news, it seems like India and the U.S. are close to natural friends, and there was all that talk about, because Donald Trump threatened India there with the sanctions for buying Russian oil, which they do. They actually resell it, and it sounds like they're close to a deal. Who knows? But that's Trump and that on the deal. And then again, if we want to talk about COVID, at least the Americans, some of the Americans, Scott Jennings on CNN is holding some of these people to account, because it's not happening in Canada. Listen to him talk to the people that were in charge of education that are now denying they did any of this stuff. Listen in.
But speaking on behalf of millions of American parents, I have 4 at home. I had to teach them at home. My wife had to teach them at home. I am stunned at what you have said this week about your claiming to have wanted to reopen schools. I think you'll find that most parents believe you were the tip of the spear of school closures. There are numerous statements you made over the summer of 20, scaring people to death about the possibility of opening schools. And I hear no remorse whatsoever about the generational damage that's been done to these kids. I have 2 kids with learning differences. Do you know how hard it is for them to learn at home and not in a classroom that was designed for them? And for you to sit in front of Congress and the American people and say, oh, I wanted to open them the whole time. I am shocked. I'm stunned. I'm stunned. And there are millions of parents who feel the exact same way.
Okay. Where is that in Canadian media holding anybody to account? We would do it. We would do it. But with Bill C-18, they kind of suppress us. And again, they won't give us access to these Liberal politicians and bureaucrats, will they? They won't answer any questions.
Well, they wouldn't. It's like I said, I was talking about the economy when I said it, I believe. But Canada is a much more closed society than the United States. The United States is a much more open, liberal, pluralistic society. And that's something that I don't know if are Canadians bothered about that. I don't know, but it's a fact. And in Canada, you just don't have that. You don't have strong enough groups that can challenge authority in that way. I mean, it happens. The one exception to that, I'd say, is certain First Nations and anything related to Indigenous groups. Like, you do see that now and then when a prime minister or something goes to the AFN assembly or whatever it is, a conference. Sometimes I don't know if you remember, not so long ago, I think it was Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau were kind of given really not very good treatment by some members of First Nations. But that's it, really. I can't really think of other times it happens. I mean, there's like Justin Trudeau's had things like gravel thrown at him, which he was very upset about. But it's kind of, you don't see it in a formal context, do you? You don't see formal people representing institutions or whatever, like really laying the smack down on a politician in something like that in an interview. You just don't see it really.
And let's turn our eyes to Poland here, where there is unrest in much of Europe now with all the policies that are going on here. And here's the Polish politician Gregor Braun tearing down the European Union flag and wiping his shoes with it and then burning it. And you know, he's definitely not a fan of the EU. The EU is definitely having a little bit of trouble in many European nations. And you know, obviously the UK bailed from the EU, but that's what we're going to attach our star to, the EU.
Yeah.
Actually, that's good enough. We don't need to. We're going to try to move along here. But no, he lights it on fire there and stuff like that. But the one big crime that has got everybody, and this is absolutely heart-wrenching. And if you haven't watched it, you know, like. But you know, the sad thing about this young lady, I listened in on the DA that made the call to the parents. The sad thing is, a majority part of the world has watched the execution of their daughter over and over and over. And imagine you having to watch the execution of your own child live. Well, not live, but I mean, you get to watch it over and over. I know that the world got to watch it. But here's the Biden administration wouldn't have done anything about it, but it looks like we don't have this video. But it was Donald Trump saying that they were going to prosecute to the fullest extent. And then Pam Bondi also coming out and said that this is now a federal case. I mean, this has got Americans in an uproar, and it should have Canadians in an uproar too, because we see it here in Canada as well. We saw the rape of a 3-year-old child. Somebody broke into a home. We also saw the guy charged after somebody broke into his home with a crossbow. And he was charged because he defended himself. And there you go. It looks like we have the right one there. Do you want to play that clip there? Or can you? No, we'll move on to Joe Rogan here, and just talking about how the media paints some stuff. And here's Joe Rogan talking about Trump.
Seeing with Trump, regardless of his flaws, what you're seeing with Trump, regardless of flaws, is a massive, concentrated psyop. They've distorted who he is to the point where most people think that way. Most people think that way. They've had narratives.
What is a psyop? I keep hearing that.
Psychological operation.
Whoa.
Where they've decided to distort people's perceptions of things.
Yeah, when you tell like an older liberal that like the Obama deportations were higher than the Trump deportations, they go, no, what? No. And you go, no, let me just Google deportations, Obama versus Trump, and you go, it's lower. They go, wait, what? Like, here's 19 straight articles saying that I'm right. And they go, that doesn't make sense. And you go, right.
Stop there, yeah. Anyway, but here's CNN actually too on the same topic. Let's go with CNN. Apparently a very liberal network. And Scott Jennings there again.
You just say this out loud. Check it out.
Agree with you that Democrats cannot only be the party of resistance. We cannot, we resisted so hard between 2017 and 2024. We impeached the guy. We prosecuted him, convicted him of 34 felony counts. And guess what? He still got elected. So I don't know how much harder we can resist now.
Are you admitting that, that the case against Trump in New York was part of the organized Democratic Party resistance?
It was a Democratic prosecutor. And at the time, I said I thought it was unwise. I went on Fox News and said
there were Democrats who said this at the time.
I wonder if people still, even some of the people who are the most angry about Trump and hate Trump the most, do they know what those 34 felonies were? I get the feeling that there's only a very small proportion of the American population or any population that's actually looked and read the list.
How many
All you've got to do, you just have to spend 15 minutes researching it, and you'll see where that accusation comes from, that they were bogus.
How many in the Canadian media still call Trump a felon, a convicted felon, a rapist? I don't know, how many things, a fascist? I mean, Andrew Coyne, look at his account. Just check his Twitter account. Half his tweets are TDS. I mean, this is Canada. And then this is the Canadian media. I mean, they remember they were doing Jagmeet Singh was one of them, was doing a petition to stop Trump from traveling as a convicted felon into Canada for the G7. The most powerful nation in the world, that one that offers us protection, the only thing that offers us protection from the Russians, is the Americans. And we were having a petition to block him from entering Canada. Comical.
And even though Carney told us, didn't he, like we were saying at the beginning of the show, Carney told us that he was a dire threat to Canadian sovereignty and all the rest of it, but Mark Carney isn't interested in blocking Donald Trump's entry into this country. He went to meet him when he was in Alberta.
Well, how do you know who's telling the truth? The other ones that are trying to silence the others, the people are lying. But here's the big one here. No, keep going. We're going to go to the Justin Trudeau thing. Next one. There you go. You can book Justin Trudeau right now. He's looking for cash money and a podium because he loves the podium. He absolutely loved the podium. He loved to tell you that you were a narcissist, or no, sorry, that a misogynist, racist, homophobic. What were the other terms he used? Some of the stuff that he accused Canadians of, fringe, for having, and then he's the one that said that they would boycott Meta until that they released Canadian media. And now they're spending over $5 million up till March. And they won't tell us how much they spent since March. They won't tell us.
It is amazing when you you're listing off some of his greatest hits there. It's remarkable, some of the things that he said, and like the misogyny, and it's like, he's the guy that like elbowed a woman in the face, didn't he, in the House of Commons chamber, that was obviously just an accident. And he got rid of so many women from his cabinet, and they came out and criticized him. And then he said also, didn't he, infamously, that the Americans are just misogynists. That's why they didn't elect Kamala Harris. And then he proceeded to take his crown off his head and put it on Mark Carney's head, rather than Chrystia Freeland or any of the women that wanted the job. Or the racism one as well. This is the guy that, like, how long would it have taken him to black up? How long did that take? And he got the turban and everything. Did he do that turban himself? This guy, yeah, not just once. But this guy who spent a very long time trying to look like Aladdin or whatever it was, like a ridiculous caricature of Aladdin or some sort of, maybe it was an Indian figure, that one. I don't know what it was. And then he comes out and talks about people being racist. I mean, he is really one of a kind. He's all this talk about Carney being worse. Like, don't be silly. Don't try and tread on Justin Trudeau's well-earned reputation.
And who was his greatest protector? The CBC.
Yeah, indeed.
They protected this man through all this nonsense. And it was absolutely, but now for $100,000, you might be able to get that money back. So if you pay the $100,000, because we've hosted events here in Kelowna where we've had actually Stephen Harper and Jean Chrétien at the same time speak at the leadership event that we held here. That was some of the greatest. We had both there because we wanted to make sure that we covered, like contrary to most people's beliefs or thinks. We had both a liberal PM and a conservative PM there at the same time because we like to be pluralists. But I mean, it's just some of the stuff that's going on right now at the expense of the many and the benefit of the few has to be pointed out. Like we need to point it out. But for $100,000, you could get them to come, and then we have lots of agriculture here in Kelowna. You could probably sell a lot of tomatoes. You could probably sell $100,000 worth of tomatoes. If we should ask if Justin Trudeau is willing to. He doesn't even have to speak. He just has to stand on stage.
I mean, I think he would resent that, though, not being given the opportunity to chat. It's just it's great for him, isn't it? It's just like the thing that he used to do every few hours of every day. He now gets to do it in exchange for $500,000 or whatever. Because it says 100,000 or more. I expect it'll be more than 100,000.
Well, we paid a lot less for Chrétien and Harper. Both of those, and in person, and that's probably his 100,000 virtual speaking fee. But I think he just spoke somewhere in South Korea or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, who's paying these? These are all these NGOs, and it's money that's been funneled away. Like, the $500,000 you can bet on it that went to South America for climate mitigation. How much do you think actually went towards climate mitigation?
500 million, wasn't it? I thought it was million.
Sorry, 500 million. That's right. How much of it do you think actually ended up in climate mitigation?
I would say less than nothing.
Because, it's very hard to track it once it leaves, right? Once it goes over there, then you can distribute it however you need to distribute it, right?
Well, even big defenders of international aid admit that only about 20% of the money that's like supposedly donated and given to countries actually goes to the purpose it was meant to be gone to. Because obviously the charities themselves, they take about 20%. Then often they kind of hand it out. They subcontracted it to another, like a distributor. They take about 20%, and then there's graft and corruption and all the rest of it. I mean, yeah. So not very much gets to the people.
Shelley, all media should be defunded. There should be no government-funded media in Canada, because otherwise you will not have an honest media. And we need to stop funding of media, all media, including ourselves. We need to be free, though. We need to get back our audience that we earned serving our community. And but I just want you to think on that $500 million. If it was such a good thing, why would they hide it and you wouldn't find out about it for a couple of years? And then why wouldn't they show us what they did with it when they say, look what we accomplished? Just take a look at this. Look what we accomplished in wherever, Peru or whatever. Look what we accomplished. Nothing.
But then they never say that, do they? They always just give the money figure. And that's your first clue.
What did we just get?
That they don't have anything to show. It's like, that's why we spent $500 million. It's like, but that's just money. What did you do? What's the outcome?
What did we just get? All the billions of dollars we sent to Ukraine, and we asked where did the money go. What did they tell us? Sorry, we can't share it.
Defending our democracy.
No, they said they can't share that information with us because it's a national security interest of where the actual money went. What national security interest? Like what? We spent it on bombs. We spent it on what? Like, where did the money go? Like, just an itemized list. This much for actual, military. Yeah. This much for what? Graft? This much for what? Like, where'd it go?
God knows. If anybody ever succeeds, maybe it'll be in 50 years' time or something, of doing a proper audit. I think there'll be quite a lot of scandals to come out of that. Not discussed during this time, and it's for the same reason. It's like, we don't want to sabotage the war effort. Basically, that's the
Canadians
argument, isn't it?
Get past politeness and ask yourself if you think the amount of Canadians that are watching CBC that they deserve $1.55 billion of your taxpayer dollars, and the first thing they did when they got extra $150 million, what did they do? They gave the executives a raise. They gave themselves a raise, almost like they said, "Hey, good job, we won the election. Here's payday for everybody."
And it's also totally involuntary. It's from general taxation. The analog, often what's put up there as a comparison, or to make Canadians feel better, is, look what they do in England with the BBC, which is also kind of funded by the people. But it's theoretically voluntary in England because they have something called a TV license. You can just not have a TV, then you don't have to be a part of it. It's a choice. Kind of in England.
We should have a referendum.
Whereas here, it's just, no, we're just going to take that out of your income tax, basically. You don't have a choice.
There should be a referendum in Canada and see who actually wants to pay into the CBC. That's one of the things that Poilievre should fight for, is a referendum in Canada and say, if you want your tax dollars to go, and if you want, you can send half your check there. You can send most of your check there. Or, you can choose not to. And then the CBC can then compete for your money, because they don't represent the voices of all Canadians, do they? They represent the few at the expense of the many.
They represent the establishment to the few. That's their job, basically, is to put across the motivations of the establishment and the argument of the establishment and the establishment's worldview. Put that to about 20% of the population or something. That's basically their role in Canada. They don't really do much else, do they?
Yeah, you can help us beat, the censorship too. We've lost our YouTube audience of 200,000. Our Facebook audience of 200,000, and they definitely lots of times we see our channel kind of bump up, and we have lots on. The next day, almost none. So if you can help us share it, that's the only way this is going to get out there, because definitely the Canadian government and the American government have been censoring the social platforms as well. And you can actually go to come to our Now Media YouTube channel every morning. We also have a newsletter that goes out every morning. We actually have journalists that work in a news department, and we have stories that go on kelownanow.com all the time. And we're trying to do the best we can. We're trying to be as common sense and pluralist as we can as well. But again, we want to call out the negativity and the bad stuff and the policies that are hurting the many at the benefit of the few. That's what Canada is supposed to represent, the many, not the few.
Indeed.
I have an interview coming up at 10:30 with the president of the BC Government Employees Union. He's going to tell us what's going on with that strike as well.
And unions, of course, their central guiding principle is supposed to be exactly what you just said, for the many, not the few. So it's interesting. It's very interesting timing, I think, that you're going to chat to him.
Yeah, so again, 10:30, we're going to be talking to the president of the BC Government Employees Union, and unions are supposedly, and that's how they were created, and that's what the NDP was supposed to be too, but my dad was a really big, staunch NDP supporter. It was the NDP represented the common man and woman in the community, and Jagmeet Singh destroyed that party and any kind of reputation that it had. And again, what did Jagmeet do it for? The benefit of the few at the expense of the many, and with identity politics and virtue signaling and all that. Again, we do thank you, and we hope you join us tomorrow morning and Thursday, and bring some friends with you, because we would appreciate that. And you're allowed to comment here, like on CBC, they turn off their comments. We appreciate the comments, and we engage with them a lot of the times too. And we have quite a few regulars like Shelley, and thank you for the kind word, Shelley. It's always appreciated. Thank you. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. And I'm back at 10:30 with the president of the BC GEU.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News